this APMG Midday Mentors episode. Today with us is Paddy Dhanda. Paddy Dhanda comes from the city of the Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, in England. He has gone from programming geek to chief Lego player as an Agile trainer and coach. He was the former head of Agile learning for a global bank, where he rolled out Agile education to over 100,000 Agilists. Is the number correct, Paddy?
Yeah, so we were rolling out the Agile strategy for the whole of the organization. So absolutely over 100,000 people.
Wow. He now heads up the Agile practices at QA, one of the largest technology learning providers in the UK. Paddy is passionate about innovation and education, and is the creator of Jungle Scrum, a fun and interactive Agile workshop for kids. He's also passionate about sketchnoting and visual thinking, and more recently launched this podcast called The Peaky Agilist. So welcome, Paddy.
Thank you, Chiara.
Thank you. So now I go with the first question, if you allow me to do it.
Yes.
So, how would you define what Agile is?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So I think for me, Agile is a word that is often used and abused in so many different ways and has lots of different meanings for people. And so I think when I started my Agile journey back in around 2004, it was relatively a new concept for us within a team environment. But I think now it's almost become this product that people think we can buy off the shelf of a supermarket. So in terms of what is Agile, maybe it's worth us saying what it isn't. That might be quite useful. So I don't believe it is a product that we can buy and then hope people will digest and somehow improve an organization. And it's definitely not a quick fix either, because I think many leaders perhaps have this notion that bringing in Agile ways of working will fix everything very, very quickly. And it's also, I guess, not a silver bullet that will fix all of our existing problems within an organization. And so then it's probably worth just maybe mentioning why Agile, like why is Agile so big at the moment? And I think it was Benjamin Franklin who is quoted for saying, nothing is certain but death and taxes. And I'm pretty sure if Mr. Franklin was alive today, he would also add change to that sentence, because change is inevitable in nearly everything that we do. And I think because of the pace of change is accelerating all around us, that the need for Agile is growing. Because we need to constantly find new ways of adapting as an organization or even as individuals. So when I define Agile, I like to think of it using three simple levers. So thinking of flow, value, and quality. So flow is all around, how fast can we make this product? So it's really about speed. Value, so, are we making the right things? So what we don't want to be doing is working really fast as a team and producing lots of great products that perhaps aren't very useful. And then the third lever is quality. So building great products is absolutely a must. Building them fast is also a must if we want to compete with our competitors. But building them well is another key aspect of agility, because what we don't want to be doing is building products that aren't fit for purpose and have defects. So if we can get the balance between flow, value, and quality right, then I believe we are meeting our goal of agility. So really for me, it's about making sure as an organization, focusing on those three key elements, and we're able to then respond to change around us effectively. So for me, that's probably what I would define as Agile in a long-winded way.
Lockdown has been a challenging time for many people. As an Agile practitioner, can you share some tips on how teams can work more effectively virtually?
Yeah, so another great question. So Chiara, I'm gonna ask you a question, if I may. What is your favorite hobby and why?
Reading.
Reading. Okay, excellent. And why? Why do you love reading?
Because I can live different stories that maybe I can never experience in my real life.
Excellent, excellent. So let me share something personal about me that you may not know. So, and not many people know this. I met my wife probably, I think, about 16 or 17 years ago. I'm going to get in trouble now because I don't know the exact year. And I proposed to her within 4 hours of meeting her. And we got married, and the rest is history, as they say. And and she's amazing. So I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I've shared something personal about me, and you shared something personal about you. And I think something that we often forget is when we're moving teams from this face-to-face environment to more of a virtual environment, we often forget the human element, and we forget to connect with one another. And it's almost assumed that because we've been working together for years and years, perhaps as a team, but in a face-to-face environment, as soon as we go virtual, that the rules are going to be the same. But actually, I would suggest to teams is almost to reset, because we're under new conditions, new constraints, and it's almost like rediscovering those relationships with teams and trying to build connections with one another more frequently than perhaps we did in the past. So I guess my first tip is build meaningful connections with people that we work with, and take that time at the start of meetings to really get to know one another. And something else I often ask delegates is, in a virtual environment, can you give me an instance of when you actually had an icebreaker at the start of one of your virtual meetings? And it's quite interesting to see very few people actually remember. And they say, well, I can certainly remember in a face-to-face environment where we had icebreakers at the start. But in a virtual setting, it's quite rare that people take the time and effort to run icebreakers. And I would say running icebreakers is, again, a great way of connecting with people and just taking that time at the start just to energize and have that connection. Other aspects I would say is perhaps to think about, in a face-to-face environment, we may have a really high performing team, but as soon as we go into this virtual environment, we almost go back through the loop of the Tuckman model. So the Tuckman model, for anybody that's not familiar with it, it sort of talks about teams when they get together, they go through a number of stages. So they go through forming, storming, norming, and performing. So a high performing team, now that they're working virtually, almost may have to reset and go back through that forming stage. So as part of that forming stage, we might need to contract with one another again. And so having some form of team alliance is always good. So as a team, we come together and we agree some ground rules to say, now that we're working in a different way, what are some of the agreements we're going to make with one another? And it could be simple things like, when are we going to catch up for coffee? Is that a regular thing that we need to do? A virtual coffee, by the way. And just simple things like somebody might have childcare responsibilities, so there's a certain part of the day that they just can't make meetings. So just getting all of that up front and agreed is often good. So having a good team alliance is a good tip. And then probably my sort of third or fourth tip, there's a great book called Team Topologies by Matt Skelton. And within the book, it talks about having a team API. So API is an acronym that we use in technology and programming, but it's really, how does a team want other teams to interface with them? So as a team, we've agreed our own team alliance, but then how should others interact with us as a team? Can they call upon any member of the team? Do we prefer to be called by messenger, or do we prefer phone calls? So it's really, again, setting some ground rules for us as a team to say, how can we engage with other teams effectively? So they're probably my 3 or 4 key tips. But then there's some great agile techniques that we can also use. So how do we constantly keep those connections with one another? Have a daily stand-up or some form of daily huddle So just dedicating those 15 minutes every day as a team and just talking to one another.
But I can see a common theme of creativity and fun in the work that you do. Please tell us more.
Oh, okay. So creativity absolutely plays a major part in my life. And I've tried to bring it into my work now. So as a child, I loved things like art. I love music, but I never really got the opportunity to bring that into the work that I did. So I'm going to run an experiment. So, Chiara, do you have a pen and paper?
Pen here, okay. Paper here.
Awesome. So I have mine. I'm going to give us 1 minute, 60 seconds. And what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to do this too, so it's not unfair. Okay. I'd like you to try and draw me.
Oops. I'm not good at this drawing. I have to tell you.
It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Okay. So I'm going to start the clock. Don't worry about it. Are you ready?
Ready.
Steady, go.
Let's go.
Okay.
Oops. I don't know if you speak to me after you will see. Yes, but it's okay. Oops.
Okay, 30 seconds remaining.
Oh my God, okay. I'm
3 seconds. 2, 1, done. Time's up. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to reveal? Oh, let me just add one finishing touch. Would you like to reveal your drawing?
Yes, but please forgive and forget if you can.
Let's have a look. Oh, it's a bit blurry. I'm trying to see. You hold it back a bit because I think the camera's blurring it for some reason. Oh, there we go. A bit up, a little bit up. Yes. Ah, awesome. Yes, I see it. Oops. That looks awesome. Thank you.
And okay.
This is my attempt of you, so I don't know if you can see that.
Definitely better than mine.
Oh.
I don't complain.
No, thank you so much for doing that. So why did I do that? Well, it's a really interesting experiment that I sometimes run. So this was an experiment that a guy called Bob McKim, who back in, I think around the 60s, used to run this experiment. And he was a creativity researcher. So what Bob McKim would do is he would bring a bunch of adults together. And the first thing he would do is say, if you've never met one another before, just draw each other. And people would go, whoa, and exactly the reaction that you had was whoops. And what was really interesting was even at the end of it, when they were asked how did they feel about doing that activity, a lot of them felt quite uncomfortable, right? And what I'd noticed is a lot of people would say sorry and apologize to the other person, which I think I was getting from you as well. Yeah. And so then he would run the same experiment with young children. And how do you think the children reacted when they were told to do this activity?
Maybe they don't apologize. They think it's a masterpiece.
Absolutely. So children have a different mindset, and I've tried this with my own children, and they're really proud of what they do, and they don't even have any reservation. They just get on, do the task, and they will flash the picture like it's the best piece of artwork they've ever done. And so what's really interesting was Bob McKim found that as we grow up and as we get older, we start bringing biases into our thinking, and we start to lose that creativity that we once had, because we start thinking about what are other people going to think of what we've done, whereas as children we have a different mindset. So if we take that same thinking to perhaps the work environment, especially if I think about technology and building technology products. Sometimes we want people to be really creative and innovative. And if now we have this mindset that we're apologizing for our ideas, well, that's not going to be great for us, right? So what we don't want is people to be suppressing those great ideas because of those biases. So I guess for me, one of my aims in everything that I try and do, especially around coaching and training, is I want to unlock that creativity within people. I want them to go back to that time when they didn't have those biases and they didn't apologize for drawing somebody badly, or and to be fair, your drawing was really good, by the way. So I'm really impressed because I shot on you, right? But it's don't apologize. We all have great ideas, and another example of this is as the British culture. So I used to work in a global bank, a big German bank, and what was really interesting was often my British colleagues would come onto a call and they would apologize for asking a question. So they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but can I just ask you X, Y, Z?" And one of my German colleagues once said to me, she said, "Paddy, why do you feel the need to apologize every time you ask a question?" Because I think perhaps culturally, the German culture is different, and people don't have that. So it's about getting people to really open up and not have those biases and be themselves and feel comfortable in a team environment. So that's why I love to bring my creativity into the work that I do.
And what is, in your opinion, is one of the most useful skills that we can develop to achieve more success?
Yeah, no, I that's again a really tough question, and there are many different skills, I guess. But I guess for me, it's about engagement. So the more we can engage people, the more we can engage with people, I think the better and more effective we can be as individuals and as teams. So, for example, when I'm trying to train and teach, and it becomes really difficult virtually. Actually, virtually running training is very, very difficult. So I'm always thinking about how can I engage my audience in better ways. And I've learned over the years that actually, as a trainer, I need to talk less. So I used to probably talk about 80 to 90% of the time, and now I've flipped that the other way. So learning within yourself to engage, but not always being the person that speaks the most. So how can we do that? And it could just be simple things like drawing something. So when we're brainstorming, rather than writing lots of words, maybe just draw a little picture to say, well, there's my idea. And often we find people get drawn to visuals. And so if you imagine, lots of Post-its on a wall and people have written lots of great words, but there's one that stands out because it has something different. It's visual. So I would say working on our engagement and engagement skills, I think can supercharge team dynamics immensely. So that's probably my favorite skill that I would fully recommend to people.
Many thanks, Paddy.
No worries. Thank you, Chiara, and thank you for being a really good sport and participating in my activities.
Thank you. See you soon.
Cheers.